The battle for the mind of North America will be fought in the video arena. The television screen is the retina of the mind's eye. Therefore, the television screen is part of the physical structure of the brain.
Welcome to episode 16 of The Outer Reels. I'm Jason. With me, as always, is Sam.
Here we are, man.
Here we are. I'm going to best sum up Sons of Steel as my revenge for Zone 39.
Oh.
Only I think I overshot the mark.
Just by a little bit.
Because this was a little rough.
I mean, I don't even...
I know we both got nervous when we saw Musical, so there is that.
I wouldn't say the word nervous. I would say that I was just like, I was already out. I don't do musicals. I don't watch musicals.
No. I'm the same way. There's only one musical as far as I'm concerned, and that is the Blues Brothers, and all others are garbage.
And yeah, I agree. And Blues Brothers is also what I like to refer to as a perfect film.
Yes, it is. It and Back to the Future are my two perfect movies. Sons of Steel, I thought, based off the first 5 minutes as it opened, and they do this strange metal cover of the Instigators song, whatever the hell. Tom Petty made a cover a couple of years after this movie was made. They start off with a metal cover of that, and I thought, well, if it's just they cut to concerts and stuff every now and then, I can handle that. But no.
Not even close. So this is a weird movie. This movie came up a couple of times when I was doing my quote unquote research for our Australian season. Speaking of, this is episode 16. So this is our last Australian episode.
Last Australia.
Of our backseat Australian movies. We're getting ready after this to head to Japan. I've got a couple of doozies lined up for this, and I'm mostly excited to butcher everybody's names. There's going to be a point where I won't even apologize because it'll just be clear I don't know how to pronounce stuff.
Oh, exactly.
The Japanese run is going to be really fun. Might actually find some really good stuff in there that we want to watch or it's worth watching. I don't know, man. This is a bad way to go out on a final. That's all I can say.
They can't all be The Last Chase, Sam.
Yeah. Dude, I was at my neighbor's house last night. He's in his 60s. And I was just raving about The Last Chase to him. And he's just like, because I mentioned Burgess Meredith, and he just started laughing. He's like, what? And I told him that. He's like, that sounds awesome. And I was like, it is awesome.
It's not, but it is a fun movie.
Still a great movie. Should also mention we have an email address.
Yeah, go for it, because I don't remember what it is and I've been drinking.
So yeah, it's just theouterreels@gmail.com. So we want people for suggestions, especially when we transcend over Europe, because this is going to be way out of my wheelhouse, and I want to do a good run in Europe. If we can get anybody's help, I'm talking about you, Mr. Belgium, our watcher in Belgium, our listener in Belgium. Reach out to us, suggest a movie, look for something. I'm looking for stuff.
Someone in the UK now as well. So
yeah. So and also because we want to do a UK run as well. But
yeah,
anybody, we're just looking for. If you've listened to one or two of these episodes, you get the idea of what we're actually looking for. So yeah, shoot us an email, and we also have an Instagram. I don't know why, but we have one. But there's a link on there where you can buy merch.
I was just going to say, Sam is. I see on our Zoom call is sporting a lovely hoodie with our logo.
It's great. And a mug.
So,
speaking of which,
and a mug.
I don't
Mine's
ever
on its way.
drink tequila, but I'm drinking tequila tonight because this movie was hard, dude.
Yeah. Well, my beer is only 6.75%. So we'll see how this goes.
So let's get rolling on this. It's 1988. Right. You step into an elevator, and none other but the absolute legendary George P. Cosmatos steps in with you. How do you pitch him this movie?
I'm trying to remember. I know the name, but remind me what he's done.
Well, you could start with the Cassandra Crossing, or you could say what's more important would be Rambo First Blood Part 2, backed up with Cobra. Then on top of that, the undeniable Leviathan, and then followed up with Tombstone. I mean, the guy is world-class director, but you could...
No, I knew the name.
Yeah, I believe that his son slept on John's couch for a while.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not even remotely surprised by that statement.
I know.
To be honest, now that I think about
it
it.
made me laugh when he told me about it. Yeah, I mean, you could zoom in on Cobra and zoom out, and then the other ones could be a blur by comparison, because that is also a perfect film, but I'll save that for later. So how do you sell legendary Greek director Sons of Steel in 1988?
I think a bigger question is, why do you want to sell Sons of Steel?
Or how does somebody buy it?
I can't even do a pitch for this because this movie's just batshit crazy. And I've got several times where I wrote, I have no idea what's going on.
No, me neither.
Like none. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But I guess I would say, why don't we make a musical, but let's not record any sound while we're filming the movie?
Holy crap.
Do it all in post.
How is this whole movie ADR?
Well, how is this whole movie ADR and done so badly? Because Robert Rodriguez did a fantastic job with El Mariachi on his. And, for literally $6,000. And these guys it's just a mess.
This has all those bad tropes of ADR where the inflections are so wrong. The laughing is like extra comical. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but it seems like, I mean, and I tried to deep dive on this movie and there's just no information, but this really felt like one of those ones where they almost had to do it, like for a problem or an issue on set or something. And it's already bad. All the characters come off. And it's not like one that we've talked about previously where it's American accents going over on top. It's Australian.
No, exactly. That's fine. No, I have to assume they probably had a single boom mic to record their actors, and then no lav mics or anything like that. And in those locations, it was just nothing but echoes.
Yeah.
And they probably just did it afterwards. But the problem is they did it afterwards and just had their actors fill every single time, every single second that they're on screen, they filled with ADR.
Yeah.
So there's tons of
the amount,
mumbling and groaning. My favorite is the scientist woman whose name I can't forget or can't remember later on.
That's Honor.
Honor. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
she's played by Dagmar Blahova. And she had quite an extensive career. I'm glad you asked, Jason. But really, the only thing any of us would ever need to know her as, or actually that you might be familiar with, is she was the character Olga Gorky in, wait for it, Howling 3. Now, I know you were going to say Quigley Down Under, but
well, it had to be one of the two, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm trying to find my note, but she's like, she talks about how as she's getting on a motorcycle, she's like, I got to get on this motorcycle. I got to go stop this thing. I got to do all this, all muttering while we're on her back. So I work as a post supervisor. I've supervised more ADR sessions than I can count. And sometimes we will get the actor to just fill in everything and just do it. But we won't use all that on the mix stage in the end.
No.
Like you don't. And this one is just like they literally just dumped it straight on and didn't do any editing or anything else. Just
it's funny too, because you typically want to get a bunch of walla and efforts, but to have them in the tank to utilize them. But what this plays
any of that, obviously.
What this plays like is that they're recording the walla and the efforts live while they're watching it, and they're just like making up the sounds. It's
and I mean I've done a little bit of that too, but just because you want the sound to sound like the actor, but you don't use all of it. Like you take the pieces that work. You don't, like, literally they just did everything and put it all there on screen. Like it's insane.
It doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't at all. And it makes it more painful than it needs to be. I do want to say when that floating head came on, the CG floating head, the first thing I thought
Max Headroom.
No, I actually went, are we watching a Lawnmower Man?
Yes.
So,
it totally it looked just like Lawnmower Man, but I think it was trying to be, obviously, because it's pre-Lawnmower Man, a Max Headroom vibe.
Oh, very much so. This is 89. Max Headroom had been around for a few years at that point. So totally.
George has left the elevator. At this point, he doesn't want to buy your movie. He doesn't.
No, well, I don't blame him.
If I was going to summarize this, I would say I don't really know what this movie's about, but it's trying to be a heavy metal type musical with time travel and barbarians, and then a guy who shows up who's kind of like a Unisol, which is, shorthand for a Universal Soldier. But it's
okay. I did not make that connection.
How do you know what a Unisol is?
It's been so long since I watched that movie, and I only watched the one movie. So,
Yeah, dude, I love them all. They're all great movies, the whole series. Yeah, so directed by Gary L. Keaty. He has no credits outside of this movie. He has a short, and he did a TV episode. He was also credited on this as writer and composer.
Yeah, and if you go to the website, because they have a website, if you give it a good 25 seconds or so to load.
Yeah, I thought it was broken when I first went
so
there.
did I. But nope, give it a little bit. It will load. And he's proud to sell you a Blu-ray of this movie, and you can get the soundtrack on vinyl apparently as well, which shocked me.
I was amazed this movie had a website.
I mean, this is the first time I've been tempted not to buy a vinyl soundtrack.
Yeah, actually, I was like, damn, I probably should get that. But it's still, at the same time, I was like half thinking, oh, maybe this is just a really old website and it's not working. But yeah, it just loads very slow.
Yeah, well, he's obviously still trying to sell it and stuff.
Yeah,
and
they're 2010. It looks like there was a Blu-ray director's cut release. So I think they're doing sort of a rehash of that. So,
which is funny because I don't think we watched an HD copy of it on Tubi. It didn't. I think that was standard def blown up.
Yeah, I watched it on TV also, and yeah, it didn't feel as good. I mean, we can get into it later, but the movie actually, when it's some actual shots that are outdoors and stuff, it's lit pretty well. Like, one of the best things about this movie is the way that it's lit. It looks pretty nice.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, for '89, it's got a real '90s look about it.
Yeah, it's lit like a music video.
True. Yeah, very true.
Like a 90s music video. But
lots of chain link.
Yeah. Definitely blue lights, rainy alleys, all ticking all the boxes. No quarries, this movie though.
Yeah. So I should say the movie starts off once I think you get the floating head first.
Yes.
Who says his spiel, and then it jumps into a stage performance of Black Alice, who is our hero, performing a cover of, and I just found it, Something in the Air, which is a solid 3 or 4 years before Tom Petty made it famous again in the early 90s by doing a cover of it, which is,
I mean, that was
kind of wild.
That was my problem right out of the gate of this movie, is that it's draped in this heavy metal look and feel, but the songs aren't heavy enough. They're these crummy power ballad. It's the wrong.
Oh, wait till you get to the ballad.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there's a ballad at the end that is just. But I mean, because when watching that first opening scene, I thought, well, this isn't terrible. I mean, if that's what this is like, they're doing metal covers of various songs. Because Something in the Air came out in the '60s.
And they're not really metal, but yeah, I know what you mean.
No, I know, but
it's like cornball rock, like
borderline '80s hair metal.
Sure.
Though is really what it is. You got to remember, metal in the 80s was very different from metal in the 70s and very different from metal as we know it now.
That's right, because metal in the 80s was the best.
I was just trying to say that this is more like the metal in the 80s, but okay, Sam. So anyway, we do this. It ends with him getting onto a missile that is shaped like a penis.
Which I feel like Rammstein have used in recent years, a very similar prop, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But yeah, so he gets on that, and I just thought, oh, this is okay. And then you cut to him lying in bed with some woman, and he's just like, that's when you realize, oh, wow, this is all ADR. Because he's probably closer to the microphone giving his lines than I am right now. And I can tell you, I'm almost eating the mic, the windsock on this thing. So
there is a little bit of a setup, a little bit of a prologue that we get that I shouldn't iron out, because out of the little bit of sense I could make out of this movie, that essentially this talking Max Headroom lawnmower man head states that there's no countries anymore left in the world. And there are just these things called trading blocks. And trading blocks exist and people trade between them. And Australia is part of, because the movie's set in Australia.
Part of Oceania, right?
Oceania, that's right, yeah. Which is, I guess, it's some kind of like authoritarian, like nuclear free state.
Just to bring it all back to 1984, Oceania is of course the nation that takes that the UK,
Oh,
Australia,
dude, I
New
didn't pick
Zealand,
that up.
and all that
Nice.
are all part of in 1984.
Man, so many of these movies play back into that. That's great.
Well, I mean, it's
Yeah.
obviously a huge influence on so many of these dystopian things, right?
That's funny.
'Cause it's the granddaddy of dystopian literature.
So then there's this footage of a nuclear sub arriving in Sydney Harbor, sort of sets something off because they're a nuclear free state. And my first thought was like, man, I was like, I wonder if it's the sub from Death Cheaters.
So the gist of the sub, and it takes forever to explain this, but and it also makes zero sense when you think about it. It's going to collide with a ship of, I think, nuclear protesters, I guess, is what it's filled with. But they're anarchists.
I guess
as well,
that's what you
and
call them. Yeah.
they're all fans of Black Alice, I guess, or something too. And I guess the ship and the sub collide. It causes World War III.
I think so. Yeah.
Like I know they say Sydney is destroyed because
Right.
because if you bump into a nuclear sub, it will explode with all its warheads because that's how nuclear physics works.
Yeah.
But,
And because the thing is that Black Alice is the leader of this peace movement called Octagon. And that's what they're supporting, is this thing called Octagon. Now, to be clear,
you got so much more of this movie than I did. Man, I must have just way tuned it out.
believe me, I had to fight to stay into this movie. And I tried for every one of these. I put my all into it. But
one of the songs is an exposition dump, and it's whatever his name is. He does this rap exposition dump, and I had to watch that 3 times to understand what he was saying because I could not follow it.
it's hard to follow in a lot of ways. I just want to be clear that this peace movement Octagon has absolutely nothing to do with one of the best films of all time, The Octagon.
The
Which is
Octagon, yes.
Directed by Eric Carson, as you know, Chuck Norris and Lee Van Cleef. Also an example of a perfect film. I don't know. You get excited about these little things and you're like, oh, Octagon, but it's not that. But
It's also a shape, Sam.
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Of course.
Yeah, and then they and they, it's the same shape as the MMA fighters fight into, because they don't go into. Although in boxing they go into a ring, but it's a square. So I don't know.
I don't care. Honestly, if it happened after Bloodsport, I've never paid attention to it. So there's a crest that says something about Inspiritus. There's like this. I don't even know how to explain it. You're gonna have to lead this movie because I can't, dude.
No, I can't. You picked up so much more than I have. But okay, let me pass my note that right early on that just says sketchy ADR.
Yeah. When Black Alice wakes up, he has some great bed sheets. His tiger print and zebra. It's a good combo. I like those.
Yes. Yeah. So it looks like he's in a hovel of some kind, but he's got this naked woman with him, and she gets up. And he's like, oh, you're so dirty and you're so... It's a lot of that.
There's a lot of that in this movie.
Yeah. And she gets up and goes into the washroom when he closes the door, and he's just kind of hanging out. And all of a sudden he just perks up and he runs in to check on her. And she's injecting herself with something and dies.
Yeah, so was that an overdose? I couldn't figure. I assume that's what was going on.
I guess so, but I don't know how the hell he knew that's what was going
happening.
on. We should point out, there's no sound cue, there's no visual cue, there's no nothing. He just suddenly psychically knows she's doing something bad.
Yeah, that was weird.
So they go to the hospital.
Well, this is actually one of the first shots where I was like, this is actually a cool looking movie. It's like this full on Dutch tilt, and he's like walking down, but it's like, they shoot it and dress it to look like an asylum. It's got the checker floors and everything.
Yeah.
But it's actually a really cool shot of him walking down the hallway. I was like, oh, there's effort put in all of these shots.
There's little bits and pieces of really good stuff in here. It just never gels together properly. The cohesion's not there.
Yeah. Is this when we meet Karzov?
No, because he goes to the hospital, and then don't they tell him she's dead?
At the desk, he like backhands the secretary like really violently. And then it cuts to and everything's fine. And this is like one of those few times in film where I've seen somebody doing something where they're thinking about it, and then you cut back and you're like, this is just like the shot in True Lies where Bill Paxton and Schwarzenegger are test driving the Corvette. and Bill Paxton is talking about Schwarzenegger's wife, and he's like, it's like a 10-year-old boy. And Schwarzenegger backhands him, and his like jaw breaks, and there's like blood. And then it hard cuts, and they're just like laughing, driving, like it never actually happened. And this just reminded me of the exact same shot in the way that it's set up. But this goes nowhere.
This isn't done as well, because they do that a couple of times, but it's jarring because it doesn't make any sense. And then you have to kind of realize afterwards, oh, that's what happened. This is him thinking.
Yeah.
Because there's that time where he's at the elevator, and this actually just kind of comes a little bit later. But he goes to he's been summoned, I guess, to whoever it is that summons him, which is that Nazi woman and
Karzov.
Sekta is what I'm thinking.
Thank you. Okay,
I'm looking at him. Yeah, I thought he was saying sector, but that's the Australian accent. Sekta. Anyway, Black Alice gets summoned because apparently he's fairly popular, and they want to. I can't remember what excuse they give him to summon him. But it's basically he's being called into like a government office, and he goes.
Is this where the soldier notices he's famous and asks him to sign something for him?
Yeah, this is like, it could be when he's on his way. Yeah, because he's like his wants him to sign it for
his daughter,
his 8-year-old daughter or something, and her name is Suggs, Suggs, and his last name is Dix. So his daughter's name is Suggs Dix, and I'm just like, okay, that'd be funny if she was an older, like, teenager in her 20s, but an 8-year-old?
I genuinely laughed.
Jesus Christ. I'm sure you did. This was so lame. Now, I should point out, apparently this movie is co-directed by Yahoo Serious. He's got some involvement in this.
I didn't know that.
And I suspect he punched. I read that somewhere. I don't remember where, because I don't see it on IMDb.
Wow.
I heard he was involved in this somewhere, and I think that's where some of this stuff
That's interesting, because I have a couple of other connections to Reckless Kelly in this movie in the crew cast and credits, which was from the same year that comes later. We can talk about that at the end, but that makes even more sense.
Oh, and I have a note in here early on. It's like someone was watching Brazil before they made this, the Terry Gilliam movie, because it is. I mean, some of the stuff you say where it looks really good, they're really aping Brazil in a lot of places.
Well, is this where they walk into the club and they're talking about the Oceana project, and there's a woman who's like body paint zebra, and she's like blended into the wall?
Yes. Yeah, but she's only painted on one side.
Yeah, I know.
Too. Like when she turns around, none of that paint is on her back.
Yeah, this makes no sense listening to this, but visually
Shocking.
It's pretty cool to look at. It's not quite as good, speaking of George P. Cosmatos, in First Blood Part 2, where Rambo is hidden in the mud wall and he like jumps out of it and takes, like, that is probably the best rack focus to reveal somebody camouflage. But anyway,
That's
I
where
digress.
his eyes just appear, right?
Oh, so good. Get goosebumps just talking about it, dude.
I have another note: rampant bad ADR. It's like that's going to be a theme.
Is this the point where Meg, who's painted in zebra, she sees Alice and she's like, "Hi, Alice. How's about a bit of bearded clam?"
Yes.
What was that line, dude? So I guess like Alice is like, all the chicks love Alice.
All the chicks want Alice. That's just. There's our subtitle right there.
I don't.
All the girls want Alice.
I don't know how else to describe it, but all that I have written here is then Alice just starts singing in the alley. This movie's gay. Why are we not watching Stunt Rock?
Hey, we could have done Stunt Rock. We should. You were supposed to do Stunt Rock.
It's too good for
maybe
our.
I should.
It's too good for our show, really.
Yeah, maybe I should have grabbed it and ran with it. But I mean, again, we watch these, so you don't have to.
Exactly. But Alice walks out into an alley. He does a song, and then the blonde chick shows up, and she's being chased by like a guy in a ski mask and roller skates with a Bowie knife.
So it starts off with her. She's walking along, and then she gets a warning of acid rain. And I have to say that actually looked kind of cool. So she put this. It's a cheap sort of green energy glowing effect. She put some kind of shield over herself.
The best.
And then the acid rain actually looks quite good.
The best version of acid rain ever is in Escape from L.A. when Peter Fonda spots Snake Plissken and he's standing there and he's talking to him. He's like, "Man, I thought you'd be taller." And then he talks to him and he's like, "Oh, acid rain." And he pulls his like little hoodie over, and there's nothing special in the rain, but Peter Fonda has these little like scar tissue and stuff on his skin, and he's like blocking himself out. It's very subtle, but it's very well done. As far as film and Acid Rain, Escape from LA does it better than this movie.
I just like the rain's hitting the sidewalk and it's all like smoking off of there and stuff. And I just thought that looked pretty good.
Well, let's talk about we talk about rain machines like in Dead End Drive-In and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This movie probably has the worst execution of rain machines, because I swear sometimes it just looks like it's a garden hose right in front of the goddamn lens.
I should also mention the music number we're talking about where Alice is singing. For some weird reason, it's intercut with American nuclear atomic bomb testing footage.
There's a lot of that in this movie too, where like
it's just intercut back and forth. There's no reason for it, but it's there.
This movie is like a 96-minute TRT, and I feel like it's probably a 70-minute movie with a lot of intercut during these musical things. It's pretty rough.
A lot of stock footage.
Yeah, it's not fun at all.
Eventually, after the acid rain, she goes down into an underground tunnel and is walking along, and it's one of those like airport sidewalk escalator things that
right,
whatever you call them. And she's walking along really fast, but then there's this guy on roller skates with a knife starts chasing.
He's wearing
her.
a ski mask and he's like holding a big Bowie knife.
Yeah, and he puts it in his teeth so he can skate faster, so he can swing his arms. And he chases her, and she like runs, and then basically she gets into the elevator fast enough, and that's the end of it. But doesn't she like turn around and she's ready to fight him, and then the elevator shows up or something?
And then they start singing in the elevator lobby.
Yeah.
But then Alice shows up and he shoots everybody in the lobby after the song.
Well, that's a different scene.
Oh,
so
God.
Yeah, that's a different scene. So you're getting stuff mixed.
Yeah, I am. This movie mixed me up.
After that, Alice this is when Alice gets summoned, and he goes and he gets to the elevator, and he's in. So when he's at it's a different elevator and it's a different lobby. He's now there because it's much more well lit. Because when she's going in, the woman, it's all dark. So I think this is next day now, and he's being summoned. And he gets there, and there's two government guys in suits in front of him, standing there, one standing in front of each elevator waiting, and he's at the back of the hallway trying to look cool.
Kind of reminded me of the Matrix lobby scene for some reason. I had a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. And then, and again, 10 years before the Matrix.
Yeah, also in Australia, but sure.
Yes, but different lobbies and very different movies. So Alice is there, and all of a sudden the two guys standing there are wearing like masks.
Mm-hmm.
They're like see-through masks kind of things. You can see their skin through them and stuff, but it's enough to warp their features.
Yeah.
And Alice just suddenly pulls out a machine gun and starts shooting them all.
Yeah, it's weird.
And then all of a sudden, and I'm just like, huh? And then all of a sudden, it's one of those sort of dream sequence he has, and he's shooting them while he's singing.
Of course, he's always singing. God damn this movie.
Yes, and when the song's over, he although what I love, because he's carrying the gun, he can't do his arm crank thing that he does when he sings, so he can't do that because he's holding the gun this time. And he's just shooting these two guys over and over again while he's singing. But then when he's done singing, they're back to being in the elevator, standing there again. So again, you realize this is one of those things he wants to do. He dreams of shooting them. But it goes on really long for something like that. It's weird. And I was just like really confused for a minute, and then realized, oh, that's what they did.
Right.
Yeah, because he just straight up murders them too. Like, it's not even like it's a gunfight or anything. He just.
But then after that, now he's just in hell or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Because then it's over, and then he goes into the scientist.
Thought the only thing that I could think of is when he goes to this next realm or whatever after shooting all these people. The way the ADR is, it almost plays like a voiceover. It feels like Dan, which is the episode in Heavy Metal where John Candy voices the teenager, and he's like in a barbarian land. I would just say Dan is a better version of this movie, and it's only like 11 minutes long from Heavy Metal.
I don't know where I put volume 1.
How do you have
Richard Corbin?
That's amazing.
They've just started coming out with these.
Yeah, that looks incredible.
It's 70s comic books at their best.
What?
And I'll send you a link afterwards.
That looks so good. I like how you're
Dark Horse is putting them out.
Really?
And I don't know where I put volume 1, but I've got 2 are out so far. 3 is coming. I've got another Richard Corbin book up there.
Oh, that's so cool.
But yeah, it just clued in that they like It was that heavy metal, that adaptation of Dan.
Yeah, because that was the Richard Corbin. Yeah, exactly. Dude, that's so cool. Of course you have that. You're like, here's one I prepared earlier. Fucking nerd. I love it.
No, but I have. I'm waiting for the other two to come out.
Yeah.
And I'll have like 5 of these volumes all together.
That looks awesome. I'm gonna have to get those. The art, just even that glimpse of it looked great. Okay, so I should just clarify that after mentioning this, Jason just held up his re-released issues of Den from the Richard Corbin series, which I didn't know existed. And so I'm very excited. I'm going to order those. But those look...
lovely hardcover editions from Dark Horse.
They look awesome. Cool. I'm going to buy those as soon as we're done recording because...
I'll send you a link.
Awesome. That looks cool.
Yeah. Speaking of, let's get back to something we don't like. I have a note here saying they like this underpants line.
That comes back a lot.
Yeah, and I don't even remember what it is, and I don't want to, but I know it. I know they say, "Oh no, that's right." It's like, you look like a guy who would use his finger to pick his underpants out of his bum
while talking
like
to you.
Yeah, and it's just like, and they say it like 3 times.
And then there's just this whole gag of like the villain picking his underpants out of his ass crack the whole movie. But it's I don't know. Out of all the choices, this just doesn't seem very good. But this is when we finally get introduced to Karzov in this hell area, the crazy scientist.
Yeah.
And
crazy scientist and his neo-Nazi girlfriend.
Yeah, and he has
she's his girlfriend,
like
and
crazy red hair. But you would probably know Karzov, Jason, as Professor Sharp from Howling 3. But you would truly remember him as Gray in the Chain Reaction.
Yes. Yes, he did look familiar.
I knew you were gonna like. And also, while we're talking about him, in the 1976 box office juggernaut, also one of my favorite Brian Trenchard Smith classics, Death Cheaters, he was the uncivil servant.
Oh, there you go.
It all comes back.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Death Cheaters.
This is great.
So anyway, we're at the point now where they get Black Alice in, and for whatever reason, they want to use him in some kind of experiment. That other girl, the blonde scientist with the black streak in her hair, she's not having it. She's not happy about this. And I guess she's the sister of Secta, right? Like, are they twins or something? I caught that.
Yeah, because they have like the same kind of hair, but not. But
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think they're supposed to be twins. But anyway, she's not happy with the plan. She says, we're not ready for this, and it's immoral to do this to a living person. And he just like doesn't care. So he locks her in her lap.
But Alice has something in his neck?
Oh, they inject him so then they can control him.
Oh, okay.
That's what it is. They inject him, and then the sexy Nazi woman is like controls him, and that's how she gets him into the chair. And then they shoot him with like this beam, and this is where I thought they were ripping off Tron for a few minutes, because they're like demolecularizing him or something and digitizing him. And then when he's gone, the twin sister gets locked away. Flash forward, and there's like this blonde barbarian and this guy barbarian. And I actually thought the blonde barbarian was the scientist's sister at first.
So,
and then realized that they're not the same
person. But they have this fight like in this sewer.
They're fighting each other.
The moment I was like, the way it's shot and the way it's tilted and the way it's lit, I was like, the better version of this is in Army of Darkness when Ash fights the Pit Witch at the bottom of the castle floor. Like, this is the exact...
Yeah, which, again, Army of Darkness comes a few years later, too.
Yeah, that's true.
So they're there, and they're kind of fighting, but they're not. And then Black Alice appears. He suddenly, like, materializes.
He's trapped inside a hologram now?
Or I thought he was supposed to be a hologram, but...
But he pops up out of a sewer pipe like Mario.
Yes.
And then he just starts singing.
Yeah. So he's singing for a while, and then there's like this long guitar solo, and he's just standing there, like waiting for the guitar solo, not doing anything else, which I just thought was kind of awesome.
This is a weird choice of footage to let that play out. It's almost like they wanted to run that out, but had nothing else they rolled on. There's some parts in this. Again, and none of this makes sense if you're listening to this, because this movie is a visual journey 100%, because there's no narrative here, really.
I really regret not popping a few comics before watching this, because I think I could have gotten a lot more out of it if I did that.
Man, yeah. Julia was out by the first act. She was just like, I can't do this. This movie's stupid. The thing is that there is a component here with the barbarians that show up, and so the guy and the girl barbarian, and there's one like shot, and I was like, this feels like a live action Frank Frazetta painting. It actually looked cool. I was like, this is...
If you put the characters in costumes that you purchased at Spirit Halloween.
Right, yeah. They're not well dressed, but the lighting really goes a long way.
Yeah, again, it looks like an 80s hair metal music video from 1980.
I mean, lighting's everything. There's always the classic thing with John Carpenter when he was talking to Rob Bottin on The Thing, and he's like, yeah, I want to light it. And Bottin was like 23, 24 at the time. He's just a kid. And he created the dog creature. And he's like, no, you got to stop putting lights on this thing. It's going to look really bad. You know, it's like they want to overlight it. And it's like, if you underlight stuff, it can always look pretty good.
Yeah, well, you can get away with a lot more too.
Yeah. So. But I don't know what's happening at this point, but they're running down a sewer. And it's like this guy from the future. He's like some warrior, like a Unisol, like I said. And there's like the barbarian, he has like an alien style gun, like that Steadicam style auto rifle. I don't know. Like they're supposed to be melding these like people from time because they're all working together. This horrible ADR is happening all over at this point too.
Yeah. So if eventually they make their way and they find Secta again, and it turns out he's like 300 years old now or something, and like you find out his sister like killed herself because he left her locked in her lab for the whole time. And this is where you find out that the ship with the protesters collides with the nuclear submarine, and that's what causes World War III. Or something, because I guess it's like, I guess the world is only Sydney, and Sydney exploded. So
I know a lot of people who think the world is Sydney, by the way, but just tell me this though. Is this before or after that Ninja Turtle mutant shows up?
Oh, this is before. Okay. We haven't got there yet. I'll get to that. Speaking of Spirit Halloween costumes, they bought like 6 different ones and slapped that thing together. So,
it kind of looked cool though.
Well, he looked a little bit like what are those things from Land of the Lost? The Slee Stacks or whatever. Yeah. Those lizard aliens. It looked a little bit like that.
That's a good way to paint that picture. Actually, that's a good reference.
Yeah. Well, it looked like they had one of those masks for the head,
and
then it was just all sort like, but it literally looked like 3 or 4 different costumes all thrown together.
So this whole time we're intercutting back to like a comms room with 2 soldiers and one of them in a dress.
Well, that's Secta. Oh, Secta is like wearing a dress at one point. Yeah, and then there's the little person, dwarf, whatever you want to call it, that hangs out.
My only note I have about that is, why is there a midget in a gold dress?
I imagine what is only supposed to be takes place over about 10 or 15 minutes of screen time, which is probably supposed to be about 4 or 5 hours of total like world time.
Right.
They have like 4 costume changes.
This is like, the movie really lost me because then just out of nowhere, then there's like this cyborg that shows up, but it's a gimp.
Well, Secta and his little guy both have now these like metallic eyepieces, but it just looks like it's makeup, silver makeup that's been painted on her face in a triangle to make them look like they're cyborgs now or something, because I guess it's a few hundred years in the future and they live under the ruins of Sydney. And Sydney is populated up above by barbarians, and all they do is procreate, apparently.
This movie is batshit, dude. I can't.
Yeah. So that's what's happening there. And then that's when Secta explains that Alice is responsible for, this is again where he does this sort of rap exposition that turns into a song and explains what's happened to the world. And I had to watch it 3 times and I still don't understand what he was saying. But basically, Alice is apparently responsible for the ship that bumps into the submarine that blows up Sydney and destroys the world.
Is this before or after the GIMP?
The GIMP's like, you mean the midget guy?
No, there's like a GIMP outfit cyborg.
Oh, right. No, okay, that's earlier on. That's earlier. That's way early. That's early in the movie, because that's with our neo-Nazi woman has
it
that.
It shows up again, I think, but I don't.
Yeah, but at the end, because they go back in time and then he shows up again. That's what's going on there.
I did not.
So we'll get to that.
I did not get that part.
Drink some more tequila, Sam. It'll be okay.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
I will get you there. Again, you should consider weed. It might have made it all make more sense. And again, none of this makes sense, and I don't understand. But this is my comprehension of this messed up.
This
movie
is the movie that
is-
I would have, like, if I was having a party as a teenager, like I would have put it on a projector on the wall and just had it play in silence just for the visuals.
perfect for a Halloween
Yeah,
party.
exactly.
Well, if you play it in silence, you lose all the ADR.
Yeah,
So-
exactly. It's like, yeah, it's
For some reason, so Sector gives his big long rap speech thing that makes no sense, and then tells Black Alice that he has to get somewhere so that he can go back in time, fix the problem that creates this future. He has to go somewhere to do this. I don't understand. He has to go somewhere and get something and come back, I guess. I don't quite understand.
no,
Yeah, so him and the two barbarians that were fighting at the beginning, the man and the woman, now get along really well. And the woman can almost speak English properly, but really simplified. And the guy is just kind of like, me do this. They get somewhere. They find the Sons of Steel, which, as it turns out, is just a motorcycle
This is
dealership.
the best part in the movie. This is my favorite moment in the movie, actually. Come across the Sons of Steel room and Alice enters the Sons of Steel. Did you see that shot where he goes through the door?
I'm trying to remember.
So
I probably blocked it
they
out.
arrive and there's a locked door and it's got a crest for the Sons of Steel. And Alice kicks the door, but it's a hard cut and it magically cuts to this perfect tough guy cut out cartoon shape in the doorway with a flat top. And it's the most cartoon thing I've seen in the whole movie. Like he jumps through the door, but it leaves the cartoon cut out, but it's him with a flat top. It's the most bizarre thing. It's so funny, dude. It's a great moment.
There you go. But he goes in and he sees an advertisement up on the side, and it's a Sons of Steel poster, and it's of a motorcycle. And he's like, Sons of Steel. There's like a mannequin, and she's got the glowing thing or something like that. And it's a mannequin whose legs are spread, and there's like a light between her legs, and out comes the motorcycle.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah. Okay.
All I know is that they leave here. She's on the motorcycle, crashes, and then Alice jumps through the sunroof of, I think it's an XB. I should have checked. It's an XB or an XC Falcon. And it has this most insane stereo in it that he puts a tape in. The biggest stereo system I've ever seen inside a car. It's like got all mixers and stuff in it.
Oh no, you're jumping.
Am
you
I?
missed over a
Okay,
whole ton
I'm
of
missing.
yeah.
I can go back.
You've skipped over. You've skipped over a solid 25 minutes of movie. So I don't. The motorcycle comes out. I can't remember what they do. For whatever reason, they make their way back to Secta. They're going along the subway. Oh, so through all of this is when the weird creature comes out with all the thing.
Oh yeah.
And you find out it's controlled by Secta for some weird reason, and he doesn't want it to kill him. He's doing it for his own entertainment or something. I didn't quite understand that. But they fight off the creature and they stop it, and then Secta and his little small man are upset about it. Black Alice is working his way backwards. He's in the subway and he's dying. So one thing I forgot was when he got thrown to the future, he gets told that you've got maybe 10 hours and you're going to fall apart. He's in a subway and he's dying. All the while, Secta and his little midget friend are doing. They've got a big map. I just got this note of like hexagon graph paper because it was like this is total D&D thing, and they're pushing things around on a bottom lit table. Oh yeah, and then of course the two barbarians have like headlamps on, and they look like their car headlights, like on things off their head. And
well, because there's the future soldier there too that has like lights on his helmet. It's
none of it makes sense.
This is not very entertaining for anybody listening right now. This is
no. So, but my favorite part is when he's supposedly dying, and he's like, they're down in the subway, and he gets to the wall, and it says, "This is love" across the wall, and this is where we get our ballad. We get our power ballad from Black Alice, and that's where I wrote, oh, I guess he is dying because now we have a ballad. And then he gets back Secta again, and Secta sends him back in time, and I don't understand why Secta couldn't have done that from the start.
I don't understand why anybody sends him anywhere because he's a hologram now either. He's stuck in a hologram. I don't.
But he's but he's not really, and he's dying. So anyway, they send him back. He runs into Secta in the present, and that's where he says, "Hey, my future friend."
Oh, that's right.
Makes no sense. And that's where we run into the woman with her silver gimp, and he fights someone. Doesn't he grab him by the gimp by the nuts or something? I don't remember.
I would normally remember a nut kick or a nut punch in these movies, and I don't remember one in this. But
yeah, so anyway, him and the sister scientist now have to get to the ship because Secta in the future told him because the ship's going to collide. And it's his ship. He's got to stop it from happening. So that's when we get to the girl. She steals the motorcycle, and this is when she gets on the motorcycle at the Sons of Steel location again. And she's like talking through the whole thing as she's trying to figure out this motorcycle and get it working. And that's when she's like, got to get to that ferry. I got to stop
That's what it is.
Do this. I got to get this going. I got to get this going. And which reminds me, we didn't mention that when in the future, when Black Alice and the two barbarians are walking around, they're all like humming their own songs. Do you remember this? He's like humming one song, and the other two are like.
This is like, to your point with the overacting with ADR, and they're just rolling with it, and they let it go. Like they didn't cut it, they didn't change it.
No, and all three of them are humming different songs, and they're cutting back and forth between the two of them. It's just like the weirdest thing ever. Yeah. Anyway, this is where you get the girl doing her mega jump onto the ferry,
Right?
And then Secta like jumps down into some guy in a speedboat. Not Secta, sorry. Black Alice jumps down on a guy in a speedboat. Yeah,
I like that boat. That
follow that ferry.
I like that jet boat because I think that had from the one shot that I saw it looked like an Oldsmobile engine and had the same paint job. And I remember just closing my eyes and saying, please be the same speedboat from the Man from Hong Kong, from the hang gliding thing. Because it looks like the same damn boat. But I'd have to really.
If it was BTS, it would be, but I really
I'd have to really work to do that. And I just didn't want to work for this movie.
No, and my last note is where she jumps onto the ferry with the boat. I just said that's a hell of a jump. And
this is where the rain machine comes on and looks like a garden hose too.
Yes.
It doesn't look like a real rain machine.
And it's a weird creative choice too, like because it doesn't need to be raining or anything. It's like, why are you doing this?
Yeah. Again, this whole movie looks like a music video, and there's some
and it's supposed to be.
And there's some stuff that it looks great, like when it's lit right and it looks cool.
Yeah.
But that's it. Style over substance, I guess, as we say. But
I think you summed up perfectly. It's the sort of movie you just put on the background.
Yeah.
And it's just on a projector on a wall.
Well, I did a party once, and I was playing Excalibur off VHS on a projector.
Nice.
And I had it on an old Sony RGB switcher, and I would fade in the colors back and forth, and I thought it was the coolest thing at the time. It was on silent, but it was just cool having Excalibur like on an expression-driven pulse through all the 3 channels. It was super neat. But I would do that with this movie because it's kind of interesting.
So anyway, they get on the boat, and they don't succeed, and the boat crashes. And everything explodes. And then our glowing floating head comes back and says, why don't you give them a happy ending? Black Alice kind of smirks, mugs at the camera, and then they turn the boat, I guess, and it doesn't happen. And it's just like makes zero sense.
Yeah, when you say floating head, that's the Lawnmower Man / Max Headroom style. Yeah, it's
my favorite point. At one point, his eyes do like a Wolf-a-Wooga thing. From the Mask kind of thing, and they come like way out, but it's like a cheaply rendered 3D image from 1989, and it just looks
you got to remember, like,
crazy.
The people doing the graphics here probably is the same guy or of the same skill set who was doing the helicopter graphics on the computer in Empire of Ash 2/3.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's it. Credits roll.
Yeah, and then it's over, and you're just like, what did I just?
That's what I was saying the whole time. I liked looking at it. I didn't enjoy listening to it or watching it. I think my biggest fault right off the gate after it was rolling was the music should be harder for how this movie looks. Mm-hmm. It could feel a little bit better and have a lot more rewatch if it wasn't these sort of light ballady kind of, I don't know. It needed harder music for the fact of it being, a music video.
Yeah, and it's not like he can't sing because he can. Although the actor, whatever his name is now, I've forgotten, hasn't really done anything else.
No, Rob Hartley.
It's Rob Hartley. Yeah, hasn't really done anything else. I don't know where he came from or anything. It's, I don't know. I think I love your idea. This would be great just to put on a projector at a back wall at a party that you just like look over every now and then, like,
what the hell is this? That? It's cool. Yeah. It visually it looks really good. Let's see. So this movie was cut by Amanda Robertson, and she cut Young Einstein in 1988 also. So
there you go. So there's your Yahoo Serious
connection. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. So one person I want to mention who's on this was the production designer is Graham Walker, and I got to mention this guy because he's all up in our business. So 1975, his credit is prop buyer on The Man from Hong Kong, right? Most likely, this guy is responsible for Grant Page's split crotch jeans. He does a lot. This guy's working like every year, 2 times, 3 times a year. So I'll skip through.
You gotta give him. I can't blame him for the split crotch jeans.
It makes sense
for Grant Page
because
that's also a product of the 70s.
But I'm going to skim through some of the other ones and just hit some of the milestones here. But this guy just works like every year, 2-3 shows a year, right?
Good.
And so we go on for art director on The Chain Reaction, right?
Nice.
So then he's also responsible for Steve Bisley or Larry's Ute in that movie. That's why that looks so cool. So, of course, followed up as everybody did off Chain Reaction. He was art director on Mad Max 2, which is great, right?
Nice.
Yep. And then he went on as a production designer on a bunch of stuff. And then he was production designer on Sons of Steel in 88. Then jumped to, again, lots of credits, but I'm just jumping to 1996. He was a production manager on The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Oh, fantastic. Val Kilmer one?
Yeah, the good one.
Yeah.
So, it was a great movie. So he went on then in 2000, he was the production designer on Pitch Black, which a lot of people forget that's an Australian movie. And so I just thought that was good. But
because that's the first Riddick movie, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Most people don't even know.
A good movie.
Yeah, it was a great movie. Most people don't even know that exists, even though they like Riddick, but and especially don't know it's a shame. But I can go on. This guy's on tons of stuff, but from prop buyer on Man from Hong Kong to production designer on Pitch Black to current stuff 20 years later, like just super cool to see. Again, I love seeing people like run the gamut.
No, Pitch Black. I know it's because it's got it's Claudia Black. It has Claudia Black in it. Is in Pitch Black, and she was in the show that's just. It was the series. Used a bunch of puppets and stuff, but it was Australian.
Oh, you mean you were talking about Farscape?
Farscape. Thank you. Farscape just completely fell out of my brain. Yeah, because she was in Farscape, and then she was in Pitch Black.
I didn't realize that she was in Farscape. Yeah, because we talk about Farscape a lot, and that was great Aussie sci-fi again.
Farscape is fantastic. If no one's watched that, I tried to get my kids into it. They maybe it was just their age. I tried at the wrong time, but Farscape was so good.
Yeah, I mean, I brought it up on another episode where and I think my basic comment was. It's, knowing a few people who worked on it and stuff, everybody was really proud of it and really enjoyed it. And it was a good product because what was cool is like, it was a chance where people, they had money and it's like, hey, look, we can do this too in Australia, and it's a great little show. I really enjoy that. Alternate release titles. It was released as Sons of Steel all over. There's nothing else in 32 countries. Wow. For the celebration, there's I guess, some kind of popularity and a recent re-release of this movie. I couldn't get any budget info or box office or anything, which just seems bizarre for something that has some form of popularity. It just doesn't exist. I couldn't tell you its shoot duration, its cost, and its return.
If you go to the official website, it'll tell you it's become a cult classic. But I think that's them telling you it's become a cult classic.
Let's see. Roger Cowland. Here's a good one. So he's credited on this just as quote unquote visual effects. He also went on as optical effect manager on a movie called Two Hands from 1999 with Heath Ledger. You know that movie?
No.
I was in that movie. Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
You were in that movie? Just a background?
Yeah, I was an extra in the cafeteria where the kids go and buy a milkshake.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine whose claim to fame is he's an extra in PCU.
Oh, right where they throw the ground beef up.
Well, they shot it in Toronto, and he's one of the guys outside the dean's office yelling.
Really? Of course they shot that.
Yeah, I have to go back and look for him.
That's funny. So let's see. So this guy Roger Callan. So he was visual effects for this movie, but went on optical effects manager. He was working all the time again, but I just mentioned Two Hands because it had Heath Ledger and I was in it. But actually, on that movie, it went on, and he was long run VFX supervisor at the Orphanage in San Francisco. So I know a lot of people who would have worked with him. The Orphanage is really, they did a lot of good creature stuff, like right alongside Tippett. Right up in the 2000s, The Host, Planet Terror, Iron Man. They did a bunch of the demon sequences from Constantine too, like all the good creature stuff back then.
I say what you will about Constantine. I enjoyed
Love
that
Constantine.
Movie. It is a terrible adaptation of Constantine, the comic book character, but I still enjoyed it.
Okay.
So it can be done, but it is not.
I knew I'm just one of those basic people, and I knew nothing of it, either side of it. Went in and was like, "This is awesome."
Oh, no, I was reading Hellblazer in the 80s. I loved that series. Check out this monster. Look at how thick that is.
Jason's holding up the Hellblazer omnibus right now. Of course, within finger's reach.
Sorry, that was way too heavy to put where I put it.
That thing was massive.
Yeah. So, and that's just the Garth Ennis run.
Right.
So there's another one coming out with the Jamie Delano one, which I'm waiting. Yeah. The NBC show that did Constantine was actually pretty good with, I can't remember the actor's name, Sean Ryan or something. And that was a much more accurate version. But again, because it was NBC, it was very watered down. Like the original Hellblazer series and the Constantine character spins out of Swamp Thing.
Oh, it does?
Excuse me, out of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. Yeah, he's the guy who created it.
Oh, but not in the same universe. You mean like it's just the same creator? Like it's not.
Yeah, no. That character spun out of what first appears in Swamp Thing.
Your nerd level just is amazing, dude. That's awesome. I didn't know.
Well, no, because it's Alan Moore, and that's pretty common knowledge if you were reading comic books back then. I never got into Swamp Thing. But when Hellblazer came out, I read the first issue. Like,
wow!
And I was on this. I've got a good chunk of that initial.
More
series.
of a Legend of Boggy Creek fan myself, but no, dude, the Swamp Thing show was great. It was expensive. It was big, but it was on that one season.
I never watched. Yeah, that one season. I haven't watched it yet.
Good. I was all in.
Yeah, and then there were the 2 Trauma movies as well.
Yeah, unrelated.
Yeah, but it's
cool.
It's way darker, and it's a fun read, and the actual character is modeled after Sting from The Police.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
that's the original description.
I like it, dude. I always enjoy learning stuff from you about that stuff.
Nice diversion that has nothing to do with the sun.
Yeah, but it's way more interesting. Honestly, I could talk about that stuff over. So I should just talk about the last couple of things about this movie. So it premiered in 1988 at the Cannes Festival for its 32. Yes.
Really?
I know. Yeah.
Wow.
So it premiered there it's pre-release. And then, like I said, it dropped in 32 countries and it won an official selection in Brussels. And then it went and nominated for Best Original Australian Soundtrack at the ARIA Awards. ARIA Awards are like, whatever the American equivalent of music awards are. I can't even...
Like the
Grammys,
the Grammys?
Yeah. ARIA's...
Okay, or the Canadian Juno.
Yeah, so, it was tracking pretty hard. And it's not like a massive tall order back then to win an award at the ARIAs when there's not many other pictures coming out. Like I'm trying to think of.
Well, I was going to say this could be a product of compared to everything.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think of like other Aussie movies, and like the closest one I can think of is Body Melt, which I wanted to put on here at some. Body Melt's this like neighborhood zombie skin melting movie from. It's like 91, 92. I probably messed that up, but it's close. It's a very early 90s. Obscure Aussie movie, but I didn't put it in the show because it's among like horror people. It's pretty common, but anyway, but it's a an easy win. Anyway, if you submit a movie in 1988 in Australia, it's not hard to be in the running, you know. So the log line for this movie on the alternate poster, which I found, which was better than most of the posters we saw, was an out of control world needs an old fashioned hero.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't like it.
I mean, yeah, but it's a terrible description of the movie.
I don't.
Sure.
I don't like it.
It's a good log line, but
Demolition Man did this way better when they go in the future and he's all thought out, and Zach Lamb is there, and he's like looking, and Simon Phoenix is like ripping through Santa Barbara and ripping through Santa Monica, and Zach Lamb looks at the video feed and he's like, Simon Phoenix is an old fashioned criminal. We need an old fashioned cop. And I was like, that's a way better line 6 years later.
But again, Demolition Man, well, yeah, I was going to say 4 or 5 years later. But yeah.
But it's not.
So,
that's a good line. It's not even a log line. It's just a quote from the movie, and it's still better than what's on the poster of this movie. But
yeah,
I don't know.
There you go.
Dude, I dug hard and I looked and I couldn't find anything on this movie. For how visually stimulating it is, there's very little trivia and information on it, which is kind of interesting in itself.
No. Yeah, I picked this solely on its poster and nothing more.
Well,
and then when I watched the first one, when you argued with me when you saw the little musical note on Tubi, and you're like, wait, no, and I said, no, it could be awesome. You never know. And then I watched the first 5 minutes of it, and I got through that whole something in the air scene, and I just thought, yeah, this could be a lot of fun. This could be great. And I just said, just watch that and tell me if you don't think this is awesome. And if that was the whole movie, it would have been. So
I'm just going to take it as a quote now from when you say it could be awesome means it's not, because it certainly wasn't.
Well, I had watched 5 minutes, so what do I know? You know, and we're both fairly drunk now, so you know, we got through it. We have some lasting trauma.
We got through it, I think.
But
yeah, all in all, glad I saw it. Great visuals, really wild, wacky stuff. It's a 90-minute music video with some stuff intercut, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do that. Host a party, project it on your wall, play some different music, and people will be like, "What is this movie? Where is this from?" I think that's that
would be fun.
That's the way to do it. But we dust our hands of Australia now.
Yes. And now we hop across the Pacific again. But we just jump up to Japan.
I have a great pick for our first round in Japan, and it's something that came up a lot in our Canadian series. There's a lot of people attached to it, so I'm very curious. I mentioned it on a couple of our Canadian episodes, but that's what I'll leave it at that.
I don't remember what I had for lunch, let alone what we said back then.
It was something I'd never seen, but it's just it kept popping up, kind of like Howling 3 in our Australian run. Like, people were involved in it, and I kept thinking it was a Canadian movie, but it was it's a Japanese film, so it's going to be an interesting one to kick it off, and I'm very excited. Get ready for unapologetically butchering pronunciation of names, and we'll be good to go. But cool, man. Well, look, as always, it's super fun, even though these are not great movies, and a lot of them are great, but it's just fun to sometimes. It's fun to force myself into watching something that's not Big Trouble in Little China. Well,
I think we hammered this one to death.
Yeah, and as always, anything but casino. You know, I've said it before, but I really try not to be elitist when it comes to films. And it's like, I know what I like and I know what I don't like, but I still am happy to watch something front to back and find the good in it. You know, it's easy to trash on movies, but it's more fun to pick out the stuff of like, hey, this is cool.
Oh, good. And this is a good example of it. I mean, this is not a good movie, but there's still some cool stuff with it. And again, like, your idea of just playing this at, on the wall somewhere while you got a party going on, that's genius. This is like the perfect movie for that. It's just something in the back.
And it catch somebody's attention because it's something they haven't seen and it looks cool and it's interesting. So there's a lot to it. But as always, super fun, man. And we'll get ready for season 3, Japan.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks, bud.
Therefore, whatever appears on the television screen emerges as raw experience for those who watch it. Therefore, television is reality, and reality is less than television.